Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Friday, the 10th of February, comes to you from London. And we start by looking at currencies as always. Stock markets had a good night, especially in the US last night. Strong opening in Europe this morning. Commodities, and then last of all some tech stocks. And so we start with the dollar index. Back into bullish mode here. We see we're breaking the levels that we saw last week, and that's quite interesting that we're now doing that, and we're seeing here we've got an upside target of about 1%, 101.69, so quite clearly back above this 100 point mark on the index, the dollar index, and interestingly finding support on the cloud here. So we're bullish, bullish, bullish on all three time frames. That's showing us that the dollar is now just starting to recover, and we're seeing that also that the euro is making new lows here. We're seeing on the short-term chart, we're taking out the low that we saw a couple of days ago, and we've got a downside target to 105.60. So interestingly, we're starting to see that deteriorate. Watch for these upside targets one by one being negated as we fall below the levels where they were given. That's quite key. But for the moment, the euro is bearish on all three time frames, so dollar strength returning as we go to the end of the week. Looking at the Japanese yen, we also see it here where the dollar is now powering ahead against the yen. So that dollar strength is really coming back into the fore. So quite key there. Looking at sterling, we see sterling was just recovering against the dollar, but we're just coming off now. We're still above the cloud on the short term, but given everything else that we're seeing with the dollar, looks like sterling will come back through that. If we fall below this 123.50 level, then we activate a downside target to 117.70. So we've always felt that 120 was a vulnerable level, and so we'll see whether that gets taken out the next week or so. Looking at sterling against the euro, we see this is actually inverted, this chart. So this is sterling strength showing through here, euro weakness. So at the moment, it's sterling has the upper hand. It's euro weakness is the main theme there. And if looking against the Swiss franc, we're just coming off slightly at about this 125 level. Against the Aussie dollar, another good just proxy for looking at sterling, had been strengthening, just coming back again. Very similar picture to the US dollar chart. US stock markets, the S&P 500 broke the 2300 level last night. This is really significant, and we are seeing now that we've broken the January high. Market starting to run quite significantly. Looking at the short-term chart, we've got quite a lot of upside targets all clustering there. So as much as 6% upside in the short term, looks like US markets are set to power ahead. We've got 20% upside, 17% upside in the medium term. So medium to long term, the market looks like it's going to have a very good year. Looking at the Nasdaq 100. Again, bullish on all three time frames, looking really good. So at the moment, the market is powering ahead. The Russell 2000, which hasn't been performing as well of late, was up 1.5% overnight. So that's really just broken into bullish territory. We haven't quite broken out of the range yet, but that is really quite key, and we're just seeing that strength continuing. The Dow wasn't that much changed either. The S&P 500 performed better. The broader indices performed well overnight, but we are just seeing here that the Dow is holding its levels and is still pretty bullish. Looking at the Nasdaq E-mini, it's up very slightly, just at 0.2%. So the US market might have a good strong close to the week. Looking at FTSE 100, up over 0.5% this morning. We're seeing that now powering ahead, bullish on all three time frames. We've just activated this upside target to 73.90, and of course we've got some pretty good upside potential in the medium and long term. So FTSE looking good. FTSE 250 not as strong this morning, only up 0.1%, but still looking very, very strong above all three clouds there. So that's also good. The German DAX index just coming back into bullish territory on the cloud, not quite through yet on the lagging line, but still looking pretty good. And China was up 0.4% overnight, Hang Seng up 0.2%. We're seeing that finding support on the cloud in the medium term, just need to get out of that long-term bearishness. So quite key there. The Sensex barely changed overnight, but we are still bullish on all three time frames and in pretty positive territory. And the Australian index had a strong day yesterday, up 1.2%. That's a strong finish to the week. So that's now put us in bullish territory on all three time frames on the Aussie. Taking a look at Brent crude, little change this morning. We're just wandering out through the cloud. Bullish upside target here, 56.95. Does look like we're going to come back into these high 50s, 55.70 at the moment. But we have got upside of another couple of dollars, so that will be interesting to see. And looking at WTI, we also see we're bullish above all three time frames. Nat gas didn't have such a good day yesterday, falling back towards this $3 level, just really struggling to hold on. Gold has been a very interesting situation. We've been quite bullish about gold recently, just bouncing off the support in the cloud, not quite making it above on the lagging line, so the medium-term resistance just kicking in there, and we are just back below the cloud. If we take a look at the 1 minute chart on gold, that will give us a little bit of a heads up as to where this data all coming from Thomson Reuters Icon. Press the T key on the system, and we go to a 1 by 3 chart. We do have downside target to about 1207. That's about 1.5% downside, 1204. So, and we do have these targets here to 1220 that were given. That picture changing quite quickly. We need to watch for new upside thrust targets. The stronger dollar is probably just playing a little bit of a hand here at the moment. So at the moment, gold might sell off another 1%, but the medium-term picture is that this upside target of 14% upside is activated, and so that's quite key. Just keep an eye on those 1 minute charts. Silver, quite a good lead indicator for gold. Also just much the same. No really clear downside targets in the short term, and the medium term targets are there. These pullbacks that we see in prices are quite often necessary for the next run to be possible. So there's nothing to be adversely worried about there. Just finding some medium-term resistance. Looking at the US Treasury 10-year yields, we see here we're just coming back into the cloud. Strong dollar again helping here. We're just coming back above the cloud on the short term, but we are really just hovering these mid 240s. Apple is powering ahead. Was up again last night, $132 for the stock. So we're just seeing it holding on to the gains after those great results a couple of weeks ago, and the medium-term picture is that we really look like we're taking out the high. We've got upside targets 8.5%, 13% on this short-term target. Apple looks set to run. That's powering the Nasdaq ahead as well. Alphabet had less good results a couple of weeks back, but interestingly, we're just still recovering here, and we're now wandering out on the short term. Take a look at Microsoft. Microsoft had a good session yesterday, up over 1%, and again, just starting to come back above the cloud here, 1.5% upside, and some pretty big targets, 30% upside on the medium and long-term charts. And Facebook, just interestingly, at this 134 level, taking out the high. We see here the high that we saw in October, just taking that out. That's good news for Facebook. Lots of upside targets to around 30%, so looking pretty good in the short term there as well. That's it for today. Until Monday, have a great weekend. Happy charting. See you then.